The twin suns of Larathia hung low in the violet sky, casting long shadows across the crystalline towers of the capital city, Ilindra. The once vibrant streets were quiet, almost eerily so, as though the life of the planet itself had grown faint. People moved slowly, their steps hesitant, their eyes dull with worry. Rumors had spread like wildfire. The royal princess, Cerelia, the symbol of hope and prosperity for Lyrathia, was gravely ill. Her illness was a mystery, even to the greatest Lyrathian healers, and whispers claimed that the princess had lost all hope. Inside the palace, the halls shimmered with polished silver walls and floating luminescent orbs, yet they felt cold and empty. Cerelia lay in a high, softly cushioned bed, her delicate frame pale against the opalescent sheets. Her long silver hair, once radiant with the energy of her people, now seemed dull and lifeless. Her large violet eyes, which once shone with determination, now reflected a profound exhaustion. The princess had always been different. From a young age, she had displayed curiosity and courage that few Lyrathians could match. She had led expeditions into the floating crystal forests, negotiated peace with neighboring star systems, and inspired her people with unwavering wisdom. But now, confined to her chamber by an illness no one could name, she seemed like a shadow of herself. The healers had tried every method known to Lyrathia. Ancient energy therapies, crystal infusions, and nutrient elixirs had all failed. No matter how advanced their technology or powerful their medicines, the sickness clung to her body. Some of the court ministers muttered darkly that perhaps the princess's fate was sealed, and with her, the fate of Lyrathia. It was during this time of despair that the Galactic Council of Allied Worlds offered a lifeline. Across the stars, humanity had become known not only for exploration and technology but also for its remarkable resilience. Human doctors, scientists, and engineers were valued for solving problems thought impossible by other civilizations. Among them was Dr. Elias Ward, a human physician whose skills had earned admiration and respect across multiple systems. When news of Princess Cerelia's condition reached him, he did not hesitate. Elias arrived on Larathia aboard a sleek, silver starship that hummed softly as it hovered above the capital. He was tall, with dark hair and kind brown eyes that seemed to radiate calm even in the face of uncertainty. Clad in a simple yet efficient medical uniform, he stepped into the palace courtyard where the council awaited. The council, composed of elderly nobles and advisors, studied Elias carefully. Their expressions were guarded. Some were openly skeptical of relying on a human to save a Lyrathian princess. Are humans truly capable of understanding the intricacies of our physiology? One of the ministers asked, his voice laced with doubt. Elias bowed respectfully. I do not claim to know everything, he said, his voice steady. But I have learned that medicine is often not about knowing all the answers. It is about observing, understanding, and never giving up until hope is restored. A silence followed his words. Then the youngest of the council members, a woman named Liara, nodded. If anyone can help our princess, perhaps it is he. Our healers have tried everything. What choice do we have left? The doors to the palace infirmary opened, revealing the chamber where Cerelia lay. The human doctor stepped forward, his boots making a soft echo on the polished floor. He expected fear or resentment, but what met him was a fragile silence. The princess's eyes met his briefly, and then she turned away, focusing on the ceiling as if to ignore him entirely. Elias approached slowly, his hands folded calmly. Princess Cerelia, he said gently, my name is Elias. I am here to help you. She did not respond. Her lips moved slightly in a whisper, almost inaudible. There is nothing you can do, she said, her voice a soft, hollow sound. I have tried to fight. I have tried to live. But my time, it is over. Elias studied her carefully, noticing the subtle rise and fall of her chest, the faint color of life still present in her hands, and the way her fingers trembled slightly. Hope is not something that can be measured in days or weeks, he said. It is something that grows when you refuse to give up, even when the odds seem impossible. For a long moment, Cerelia said nothing. The air was thick with tension and quiet despair. Then, almost imperceptibly, she turned her head to look at him. You do not understand, she whispered. My people, my planet, it will fall if I cannot live. I am the last chance, and I have already failed. Elias shook his head gently. No one is beyond hope, princess. Your body may be weakened, but your spirit can guide the path to recovery. If you allow me, I will try." Her eyes flickered with something she had not felt in weeks: curiosity. She had been abandoned by her own belief in survival, but now perhaps there was a possibility, a tiny spark ignited by a human's unwavering confidence. He began his examination with care, using both human instruments and adapting Lyrathian devices he had been shown. Every reading was meticulously recorded, every anomaly noted. He asked questions about her symptoms, her energy levels, and her daily routines, his voice always calm, always patient. The healers, who had watched with quiet skepticism, whispered among themselves. Some were openly doubtful that a human could succeed where they had failed. Others, however, could not deny the careful method and keen observation that Elias demonstrated. There was an unmistakable air of hope, fragile as it was, beginning to creep into the room. For hours Elias worked. He observed, measured, and experimented gently, never forcing treatment but showing the princess that there was someone in her corner, someone who would not turn away. By the end of the day, though there was no dramatic change, there was a subtle difference. Cerelia's breathing seemed steadier, and her eyes, for the first time in weeks, met his with a hint of acknowledgement. When he left the infirmary for the night, Elias paused in the hallway, looking back at the princess. "We will begin again tomorrow," he said softly. "I promise you there is a reason to hope." Outside, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, bathing the palace in soft purples and golds. The city was quiet, but among the citizens who had gathered near the palace gates, whispers began to stir. A human had come to Lyrathia, and for the first time there was a glimmer of optimism. Perhaps their princess's fate was not sealed. Perhaps the stars themselves had brought a new ally, one who could challenge fate with nothing but knowledge, courage, and unwavering determination. In her chamber, Cerelia lay quietly, pondering the human doctor's words. Hope, she realized, was something she had abandoned too soon. Perhaps with Elias's guidance, there was still a chance, not just for her life, but for her people, for the planet she had vowed to protect. And in that quiet, violet-lit chamber, the first threads of a bond began to weave, a bond that would test the limits of human ingenuity, alien technology, and the very meaning of hope itself. The night fell softly on Lyrathia, but within the palace a spark had been lit, a spark that would grow brighter with every patient step, every careful observation, and every act of unwavering dedication. For the princess who had given up, there was now a reason to believe. The morning light of Lyrathia filtered through the high crystal windows of the palace infirmary, spilling soft beams across the room. Princess Cerelia lay in her bed, her silver hair fanned over the pillow like a fragile river of light. She had slept fitfully, and when she opened her violet eyes, the world seemed as heavy as it had the day before. Illness still clung to her body, yet the presence of a human doctor had stirred something unusual, a spark she could not yet name. Dr. Elias Ward stood near the bedside, reviewing the notes he had taken the night before. The instruments hummed softly, measuring heartbeats, blood flow, and energy pulses unique to Lyrathian physiology. He had spent hours examining every detail of the princess's condition, learning patterns and anomalies the Lyrathian healers had overlooked. Yet despite all his preparation, he knew the greatest challenge would not be medical alone. Cerelia watched him quietly. Humans were strange to her, not entirely unfamiliar, but their nature was different. They did not carry the grace of Lyrathia, nor the energy that flowed through her people, yet they seemed resilient. Somehow their determination did not bend in the face of impossibility. Elias's calm confidence was unusual. He did not seem afraid of her illness, nor of the palace, nor of her despair. "Good morning, Princess," Elias said softly. "How did you sleep?" "Restless," she admitted, her voice faint. "I dreamed of falling, and no one catching me." Elias nodded, understanding more than she expected. Dreams are reflections, but they are not predictions. Falling is not failing. Hope can still hold you even when it feels impossible. Cerelia closed her eyes for a moment, letting the words settle. She did not answer, but the slight exhale of her breath was different, a little lighter than before. Elias began a careful examination. He adjusted his instruments, gently touching her wrist and observing the subtle changes in her skin tone, pulse, and energy flow. He took meticulous notes, comparing them with the readings from the previous day. The toxins in your system are affecting multiple organs, he said aloud, speaking more to himself than to her. But there is a pattern here. Something the Lyrathian healers have missed. Cerelia's eyes opened slowly. You think you can fix it? She asked, the faintest hint of hope trembling in her voice. Elias paused, considering his words. I cannot promise a cure yet, he said honestly. But I can promise that I will do everything I can to help you. That is a certainty. The princess looked at him, unsure whether to trust this human. The Lyrathian healers had failed her not once but many times. Yet there was a calm determination in Elias that she had never seen in anyone else. Perhaps, just perhaps, he could succeed where they had not. Outside the chamber, the palace stirred with quiet tension. News of the human doctor's methods and unconventional ideas had spread quickly. Some ministers whispered that it was reckless to rely on someone from a species so different from their own. They do not understand the flow of Lyrathian energy, one advisor said sharply. They cannot hope to heal what our own cannot. Yet others were intrigued. Humans were known across the galaxy for their adaptability and ingenuity. Where one species might falter, humans often found a solution. Some council members were beginning to wonder if this was the chance they had been waiting for, an outside perspective that could offer new possibilities. Meanwhile, Elias worked steadily. He introduced small treatments to Cerelia's routine, mild energy adjustments, light physical activity adapted to her fragile state, and carefully measured infusions designed to balance her weakened system. He did not force her, nor did he rush. Instead, he encouraged small participation, showing her that her own will could aid her recovery. At first, Cerelia resisted. I am too weak, she insisted. Even standing for a few moments tires me. Strength is built in steps, Elias replied gently. Even the smallest movement matters. Your body remembers more than you think. If you allow it, it can respond. Slowly, hesitantly, she followed his guidance. At first it was only a hand lifted, a toe moved, a shallow breath drawn deliberately. But with each small act her body responded, as though grateful for the attention and care. Her pulse steadied, and a faint glow returned to her energy lines, the subtle shimmer of life and vitality that had been dim for too long. As the day wore on, Cerelia began to speak. I had almost forgotten what it feels like to try, she admitted. All these days I only thought of endings, not beginnings. Elias smiled, sensing the importance of her words. Beginnings are always possible, he said. No matter how dark the night, the sun rises, and sometimes it takes someone else to show us that light exists. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion in the palace corridor. A group of Lyrathian ministers and healers had entered the infirmary, their expressions sharp. Princess, we must question the methods of this human, one demanded. Are you certain you wish to continue these experiments? Your health is fragile. You risk more by listening to him than by following our traditions. Cerelia looked at them, then back at Elias. In that moment she realized that this was a choice she had to make, not for her advisors, not for the council, but for herself. She nodded slightly, speaking with a quiet authority that surprised even the human doctor. I choose to continue, she said. He may be human, but he sees what others do not. I trust him. The room fell silent. The ministers were taken aback, unsure how to respond. The healers exchanged uneasy glances, silently acknowledging that their own pride might be in conflict with the needs of their princess. With their authority quietly overridden by the princess's decision, Elias resumed his work. He explained each step to her, teaching her to understand the treatment and the reasoning behind it. She was curious, asking questions about his species, his techniques, and even his own experiences. Slowly, walls of doubt and fear began to crumble between them. As the hours passed, Elias discovered a subtle pattern in Cerelia's ailment, something connected to environmental toxins unique to Lyrathia's atmosphere. The revelation was significant. It meant that a cure would not rely solely on medicine, but also on careful adaptation to her surroundings. It would require collaboration between human methods and Lyrathian technology, a combination no one had dared to attempt before. The realization was both exciting and dangerous. Implementing such a treatment required bold action and absolute precision. Yet Elias's calm demeanor reassured Cerelia. We will approach this carefully, he promised. But we will act. Doing nothing is no longer an option. By evening, Cerelia had grown noticeably stronger. Her breathing was steadier. her pulse more regular, and the faint glow in her energy lines had intensified. More importantly, her mind was active, engaged, and curious. The spark of hope that Elias had begun to nurture was now visible, a fragile yet undeniable force. Later, as the twin suns of Lyrathia set, casting the sky in deep shades of violet and gold, Cerelia reflected on the day. She had faced despair for so long that even small progress felt miraculous. She thought about the human doctor, about the patience and determination he had shown, and she realized something profound. Humans, despite their differences, possessed a remarkable strength. They refused to surrender, even when the odds seemed impossible. And perhaps, she thought, that strength could save her and her people. Elias, meanwhile, recorded his observations and prepared for the next day. He was aware of the political tension that simmered in the palace and the scrutiny that every move would face. Yet he remained undeterred. His mission was clear: to restore life and hope to the princess, and through her, to a world that teetered on the edge of despair. That night, Cerelia fell asleep with a sense of cautious anticipation. The room was still, the palace quiet, yet in her chest a new feeling took root. It was fragile, delicate yet persistent. Hope, and as the stars of Lyrathia shone brightly above, the first threads of trust between a human and a princess began to weave, a bond that could challenge fate, defy expectations, and ultimately change the destiny of an entire world. For the first time in weeks, Cerelia dared to dream. The morning on Lyrathia arrived with a pale violet light spilling across the crystalline towers. Princess Cerelia sat up in her bed, feeling a small but definite sense of strength in her limbs. She had been hesitant to move the day before, but now, guided by the human doctor, she attempted gentle exercises that seemed impossible a week ago. The faint glow of her energy lines, the shimmer of life that had dimmed, was returning. Dr. Elias Ward stood nearby, reviewing the data he had gathered from days of careful observation. Each reading was a piece of a complex puzzle, one that he had begun to solve in ways the Lyrathian healers had not considered. He traced the patterns of her ailment, noting the subtle inconsistencies in her energy flows. "It is not merely illness," he murmured. "It is environmental, a reaction to toxins that have slowly built up in her system." Cerelia turned her head to look at him. "Toxins?" she whispered. Then, "I am not dying?" "Not yet." Elias smiled, though carefully. "You are ill, princess, but there is a path to recovery. It will not be easy, and it will require more than medicine alone. It will need cooperation between your technology and human methods, and most importantly, it will require your willingness to fight." The princess hesitated. Fighting had always been her way of life, but this sickness had stripped away her confidence. Could she truly rise to the challenge? Yet looking at Elias, seeing the calm determination in his human eyes, she felt a flicker of courage. She nodded slowly. "I will try," she said, her voice firmer than it had been in weeks. Elias began carefully preparing a new regimen. He adapted Lyrathian energy devices to work with human medical instruments, creating a system that would detoxify her body while strengthening her organs. The process required precision and care. A single mistake could worsen her condition. He worked alongside the Lyrathian healers, explaining each step with patience. At first, they resisted, wary of a human interfering with traditions that had guided their medicine for centuries. "This is risky," one healer whispered. "Your methods are untested here. You may harm her more than help." Elias met their doubts with calm reassurance. "I understand your concerns," he said, "but risk is part of progress. If we do nothing, her condition will continue to worsen. Together we can combine your knowledge and my methods to save her." Slowly, the healers began to cooperate. They provided technical support, shared their knowledge of Lyrathian energy flows, and assisted in stabilizing the instruments. The atmosphere in the infirmary was tense but hopeful, a delicate balance of trust, caution, and determination. As the treatment began, Cerelia felt strange sensations she had not experienced in months. Waves of energy flowed through her body, warm and light, as though the sickness itself were being pulled from her. The process was not painless. She gasped and trembled at times, but Elias was always there, guiding her, encouraging her, adjusting instruments, and explaining what each change meant. "You are doing well," he said softly during one particularly difficult moment. Every response your body gives is progress. This is not defeat, it is the first step toward victory. She clenched her hands around the sheets. Victory. I almost forgot what that feels like, she admitted. I thought all was lost, Elias nodded. Hope can return, Princess, if you allow it. Strength grows where you nurture it, even after long despair. As days passed, her recovery accelerated. Her movements became more fluid, her energy stronger, and her vitality clearer. The palace staff, once doubtful and wary, began to notice the change. Whispers of amazement spread through the halls. The princess, long on the brink of giving up, was responding to treatment. The human doctor had succeeded where traditional methods had failed. Yet not everyone welcomed this progress. In the Lyrathian Council, dissent grew. A faction of nobles feared that relying on a human would diminish their own influence over the planet. They met in secret, plotting to challenge Elias's methods. If we allow a human to take control of her treatment, we risk losing our authority, one counselor said sharply. We cannot let this alien dictate the future of Lyrathia. Meanwhile, Cerelia continued her daily exercises and treatments. She began to understand Elias's approach, learning the ways humans combined observation, analysis, and patience. Unlike many Lyrathians, humans did not rely solely on energy flows or tradition. They adapted, experimented, and pushed boundaries with courage. Cerelia admired this quality, realizing that hope itself could be a kind of strength, a strength that humans carried in abundance. One evening, as the twin suns dipped behind the horizon, Cerelia asked Elias quietly, "Do humans always have this will to continue, even when everything seems lost?" Elias smiled gently. "We do not always succeed, Princess. But giving up is not in our nature. We see obstacles as challenges to overcome, and we never stop trying, especially when others depend on us." The princess pondered his words. She had once believed that she alone carried the weight of her people's survival, but now she understood that help could come from unexpected places, and strength could exist in many forms. She was not alone. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. During a routine adjustment of the detoxification device, Elias noticed a sharp improvement in her energy stability. Her vital signs, previously erratic, began to align with healthy levels. "This is remarkable," he said aloud. "Her body is adapting. The treatment is working." Cerelia's eyes widened. "Really? I feel stronger, more alive." Elias nodded. "Yes, but this is only the beginning. We must continue carefully. Your body is learning to heal itself, but we cannot rush it." News of her progress reached the palace halls, creating a ripple of surprise and admiration. Even the skeptical council members could no longer deny the human's success. Yet political tensions simmered beneath the surface. Some nobles feared that the princess's growing trust in Elias could shift the balance of power in the palace. One morning, a rival faction approached Cerelia privately. "Princess," one whispered, "do not trust this human too much. He may have good intentions, but he is an outsider. Your people may not accept his influence. Think carefully before you place your faith in him." Cerelia considered their words, then looked at the human doctor standing by her bedside, reviewing her readings. He had guided her through days of pain, despair, and struggle. He had shown patience, determination, and a willingness to risk everything to save her life. And through it all, he had treated her not as a fragile being to pity, but as a person capable of participating in her own recovery. "I will trust him," she said quietly, more to herself than to anyone else. "He has earned it. And perhaps this is how hope grows." Elias continued to refine the treatment, introducing subtle adjustments that combined human understanding with Lyrathian technology. The synergy of the two methods was unprecedented. For the first time in centuries, a Lyrathian healer whispered in awe, "We have never seen such progress. Perhaps this is what our science alone could not achieve." By the end of the week, Cerelia's condition had improved dramatically. She could sit upright without assistance. Her breathing was steady, and the faint shimmer of her energy had strengthened into a clear glow. Her body, once fragile, now carried the promise of renewed vitality. Yet Elias knew the path ahead was still difficult. The political obstacles within the palace remained, and the true test of her recovery had yet to come. Any setback could reignite skepticism or fear, but for now he allowed himself a small moment of quiet satisfaction. Princess Cerelia, too, felt a sense of cautious optimism. She had seen firsthand the resilience of a human, a species so different from her own yet capable of extraordinary determination. She realized that hope was not just a word, but a force that could transform lives, challenge despair, and inspire courage. As twilight settled over Larathia, the princess looked out across the city from her chamber window. The streets glimmered in soft violet light, and she saw people moving with more confidence than before. Perhaps the human doctor's presence was not only saving her life, but also rekindling hope in the hearts of her people. Elias stood behind her, reviewing the treatment data for the evening session. "Tomorrow we begin the next phase," he said. "It will be more challenging, but I believe you are ready. Together we can do this." Cerelia turned to him, her violet eyes shining. "Together," she repeated, testing the word on her tongue. It felt strong, real. She realized that hope was contagious, that courage could grow when shared, and that humans, despite being strangers in her world, carried a spark that could ignite even the darkest despair. That night, Larathia's twin moons rose over the horizon, casting silver light across the palace. For the first time in many cycles, the princess slept peacefully, her body responding to treatment, her mind calm, and her heart quietly filled with hope. And in the quiet hum of the infirmary, two worlds, one alien, one human, were beginning to work together in a partnership that could change not only the fate of a princess, but the destiny of an entire planet. The breakthrough had come, but the story was far from over. Greater challenges awaited, dangers that would test trust, courage, and ingenuity. Yet for now the spark of hope burned brighter, illuminating a path forward where once there had been only shadows. The morning dawned on Lyrathia with a quiet serenity, the twin suns casting soft violet and gold light across the city. Princess Cerelia awoke with a renewed sense of energy, her body responding well to the combined human and Lyrathian treatments. She rose from her bed, aided slightly by Elias, and performed her morning exercises with determination. Each movement was a triumph over weeks of weakness, a reminder that life, no matter how fragile, could be strengthened with effort and hope. Elias observed her carefully, noting her vital signs and energy flows. His human instruments, adapted to measure Lyrathian physiology, confirmed what he had suspected. Her body was adapting, learning to heal itself, and responding better than anyone had anticipated. "You are doing wonderfully," he said with a calm smile. "Today we continue, and I think you will find it easier than yesterday." Cerelia's violet eyes sparkled with a hint of mischief. "Easier? We shall see," she replied, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. The bond between them had deepened over days of treatment, conversations, and quiet understanding. For the first time, she felt a sense of partnership rather than dependence, a realization that hope could be shared, strengthened, and nurtured. But the calm was not to last. Far above the city, the atmosphere began to stir violently. Clouds of dark, shimmering energy swirled unnaturally, a warning few had ever witnessed on Lyrathia. Within moments, the air trembled with the force of a storm unlike any the planet had known. Citizens rushed from their homes, looking to the skies with fear and uncertainty. Reports spread quickly through the palace. Toxic storms, energized with pollutants from the decaying environment, were forming across the capital. Elias immediately assessed the situation. "This is serious," he said, his voice calm but urgent. "The toxins in the air could overwhelm Princess Cerelia if she is exposed. We must act quickly to protect her and stabilize her recovery." Cerelia's face paled, but she stood firm. "Then we act. Together," she said, echoing the words that had grown into a mantra between them. The palace staff moved swiftly under Elias's guidance. Using a combination of human technology and Lyrathian energy shields, they created protective barriers around the infirmary. Mobile detox units were deployed, designed to filter the toxic energy surging through the atmosphere. The collaboration between species, once a matter of curiosity, was now a matter of survival. The storm hit the city with violent intensity. Winds howled through the crystalline streets, and shards of debris floated dangerously in the charged air. The palace trembled under the force, and many citizens sought refuge. Inside the infirmary, Cerelia struggled to maintain her composure, her body weakened from weeks of illness. Elias stayed at her side, adjusting the shields and monitoring her vitals. "You are strong," he said firmly. "Focus on your breathing. Let the energy flow through you and trust the barriers we've set up." The toxic storm was relentless, Lyrathian healers worked alongside human engineers to maintain the shields, rerouting energy flows and adjusting instruments to respond to the shifting storm patterns. Every moment was tense. One failure could mean serious harm to Cerelia, or even the collapse of the entire protective system. Despite the chaos, Cerelia showed remarkable courage. She followed Elias's instructions carefully, focusing on controlled breathing and small movements to maintain her energy balance. For hours she remained steady, though her body quivered with effort. Every small victory, each stabilized heartbeat, each shimmer of renewed energy, was a testament to the human ingenuity and determination that had guided her recovery. At one point, the storm's intensity spiked. A massive surge of toxic energy breached one of the shields, flooding part of the infirmary with charged particles. Cerelia gasped, her energy flickering dangerously. Elias reacted instantly, rerouting energy from the remaining shields and adjusting the detox units. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his hands moved with precision and calm under pressure. "Hold on," he shouted, his voice cutting through the roar of the storm. "We are not done yet." Cerelia focused on his words, drawing strength from the human beside her. She had learned over the past days that resilience was not only physical but also mental. Her mind, once clouded by despair, now burned with determination. Together they weathered the surge, stabilizing her energy before it could cause lasting harm. The storm raged for hours, testing every skill, every instrument, and every ounce of courage within the palace. Citizens watched from a distance, witnessing a display of teamwork and bravery that few had thought possible. A human doctor and a Lyrathian princess alongside their people were holding back a force that seemed unstoppable. Finally, as twilight approached, the storm began to subside. Winds softened, clouds dispersed, and the charged particles dissipated into the atmosphere. The city had survived. The protective systems remained intact, and most importantly, Princess Cerelia was safe. She was exhausted, her body trembling from the ordeal, but she was alive, and her energy lines glowed steadily once more. Elias allowed himself a brief moment of relief. "You did it," he said quietly, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You held strong through the worst. Your courage saved you." Cerelia's eyes glistened with tears, not from fear but from awe. She looked around at the palace staff, the healers, and the human engineers who had worked tirelessly to protect her. She realized fully and deeply that hope was not just a concept, it was action. It was courage, collaboration, and the willingness to face the impossible. That evening, the council convened in the palace hall. Even the skeptical nobles could not deny the outcome. The storm had tested everyone's abilities and determination, and the human doctor had proven not only his skill, but also the value of humanity itself. "Princess Cerelia," one elder counselor said, voice tinged with respect, "we have witnessed something remarkable today. Your survival, guided by this human, has shown us that strength can come from unity and perseverance, even across worlds." Cerelia stood, her voice steady despite exhaustion. "Yes," she said. "We survived because we did not act alone. Humanity has shown us courage, ingenuity, and determination. We must learn from this and carry that hope forward." Elias remained at her side, quiet but proud. He had faced danger, political doubt, and the immense challenge of stabilizing a world on the brink of disaster, and through it all the human spirit, adaptable, resilient, and fearless, had made a difference. As night fell on Lyrathia, the twin moons cast silver light across the city. The storm had passed, but its lesson remained. Life could be fragile, and danger could strike without warning. Yet courage, collaboration, and hope could overcome even the most overwhelming challenges. Cerelia lay in her bed once more, exhausted but alive. She reflected on the human beside her, realizing that his determination had saved her in ways she could never have imagined. The bond between them, forged through trials and shared struggle, had strengthened her spirit. "Tomorrow," she whispered to herself, "we continue. We face whatever comes next, together." Elias, reviewing his data for the night, felt the weight of responsibility but also the quiet satisfaction of success. Humanity had once again proven its resilience, not through weapons or power, but through unwavering commitment to life, hope, and ingenuity. And as the stars twinkled over Lyrathia, the princess and the human doctor shared a silent understanding. The real test had come and they had survived. But greater challenges lay ahead, threats that would test their trust, courage, and the strength of hope itself. For the first time in cycles, Lyrathia felt a sense of renewal, not just in the princess but in the hearts of its people. They had seen courage, unity, and determination in action, and they began to believe that even the impossible could be overcome. And in the quiet of the infirmary, the first true smile in weeks appeared on Princess Ceralia's face, a smile of relief, gratitude, and the knowledge that hope, once given, could grow brighter than the darkest storm. The night ended peacefully, but the promise of a new dawn loomed on the horizon, a dawn where humanity and Lyrathia would face the future together, ready for challenges yet unseen, armed with courage, ingenuity, and an unshakable hope that nothing could extinguish. The first light of Lyrathia's twin suns bathed the city of Elindra in a warm, golden glow. For the first time in many cycles, the streets were alive with movement and sound, not hurried or fearful but calm, purposeful, and full of hope. Citizens emerged from their homes, whispering in awe about the recovery of Princess Ceralia. Word of her survival and renewed strength had spread across the planet, igniting optimism in hearts that had long grown weary. Inside the palace, the princess moved with a grace that had once seemed impossible. Her body, once frail and weak, now bore the unmistakable glow of vitality. The subtle shimmer of her energy lines, once dim and irregular, now flowed smoothly, radiating strength and life. She stood at the edge of her balcony, gazing out over the city with a renewed sense of purpose. Dr. Elias Ward stood beside her, reviewing the last readings from the detoxification and energy systems he had implemented. They had worked flawlessly, stabilizing her body and balancing her internal energy. It was a success far beyond what he had hoped for, yet he remained humble, aware that the work was not his alone. It had been a collaboration, a shared effort between human ingenuity, Lyrathian knowledge, and the princess's own courage. "You have grown strong," Elias said quietly. "Stronger than anyone could have imagined a few cycles ago." Ceralia smiled, her violet eyes shining. "It is not only me," she replied. "It is all of us, your guidance, the healer's dedication, the engineer's quick thinking, and the people's courage during the storm. I could not have done this alone." The human doctor nodded. "Strength is often shared, Princess. That is something humans understand well. Alone, we are limited. Together, we can achieve remarkable things." Beyond the balcony, the palace staff and citizens were preparing for a public ceremony. The Lyrathian Council had agreed to honor Elias and the human contribution, acknowledging the partnership that had saved the princess and, by extension, the planet. Even those who had doubted him now spoke in hushed tones of admiration and gratitude. As the ceremony began, Princess Ceralia entered the grand hall, her steps steady and confident. Elias followed slightly behind, observing the expressions of awe and respect that greeted him. The hall was filled with the leaders of Lyrathia, the palace staff, and ordinary citizens who had witnessed the miraculous recovery. The atmosphere was electric, charged with relief, pride, and hope. The eldest counselor stepped forward to speak, his voice carrying across the hall. "Princess Ceralia," he began, "we have witnessed a remarkable journey. Your courage in the face of illness, combined with the guidance of this human doctor, has not only saved your life but has also rekindled hope across our world. We honor you both today for your bravery, wisdom, and determination." Ceralia stepped forward, her voice steady and strong. "I am grateful for all who have helped me," she said. "This recovery was not achieved by one individual alone. It was the product of collaboration, trust, and the courage to act when the outcome was uncertain. Humans, despite being strangers in our world, have shown us the power of perseverance and hope." There was a collective murmur of approval from the crowd. For the first time, many Lyrathians saw humans not as outsiders or mere visitors but as allies capable of extraordinary courage and ingenuity. Elias felt a quiet warmth in his chest. Humanity, often underestimated by the galaxy, had proven its worth once again, not through force or power, but through determination, compassion, and knowledge. The princess continued, addressing both her people and Elias. "We have learned that hope can be nurtured and shared, and that strength does not belong to one species alone. Today, Lyrathia embraces the idea that cooperation across worlds can achieve what was once thought impossible." Elias bowed respectfully. "It has been an honor, Princess. You have taught me as much as I have helped you. Your courage and wisdom are remarkable. Cerelia smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that illuminated the hall. Perhaps humans have more to teach us than we realized, she said lightly, though her tone carried sincere appreciation. Not only skill and knowledge, but determination, patience, and the refusal to give up. As the ceremony continued, citizens stepped forward to offer words of gratitude and admiration. Children, inspired by the tale of survival and resilience, looked at Elias with wide eyes. "Will humans always come to help?" one whispered. "Do they never give up?" Elias knelt slightly to meet their gaze. "Humans try their best to help whenever they can," he said. "We may not always succeed, but we never stop trying. That is what makes hope real." The storm, once a terrifying force of destruction, had become a symbol of resilience and cooperation. Lyrathians now understood that even the most dangerous threats could be faced when determination, ingenuity, and courage were combined. Later, in the quiet of her chamber, Cerelia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the days of despair, the moments of fear, and the nights when hope seemed lost. And yet, through it all, Elias had stood by her side, unwavering in his commitment to save her life. He had taught her that courage could grow, even when the path seemed impossible, and that hope was more than wishful thinking. It was action, perseverance, and belief in possibilities. Elias, meanwhile, reviewed the final readings from the detoxification units. The princess's body was stable, her energy fully restored, and her vital signs surpassed expectations. Humanity's methods, combined with Lyrathian technology, had succeeded beyond anyone's imagination. Yet he knew that the true victory was not in the data, but in the bond of trust and hope that had been built. The following days were filled with recovery, celebration, and planning for the future. Cerelia resumed her duties with renewed vigor, inspiring her people not just through her survival, but through her determination to act for the benefit of all. She made a point of sharing her experience with the council, emphasizing the importance of collaboration across species and the value of learning from others. Humans were now seen as true allies of Lyrathia. Invitations for further cooperation arrived from neighboring systems, eager to witness the remarkable story of perseverance and ingenuity. Humanity's reputation as explorers, problem solvers, and resilient beings spread further across the stars, gaining respect in corners of the galaxy that had once doubted their worth. In a quiet moment, Cerelia and Elias walked together on the palace balcony. The twin suns glowed warmly in the sky, and the city below sparkled with life. "We have done something extraordinary," Cerelia said softly. "Not just saving me, but changing how my people see hope, courage, and humans." Elias nodded, taking in the vibrant scene below. "It is remarkable what can happen when we refuse to give up," he said. "And it shows that hope, once shared, can grow beyond measure." Cerelia turned to him, her eyes reflecting the sunlight and a deep sense of gratitude. "Thank you, Elias. You gave me a reason to live, a reason to fight, and a reason to believe again. Humanity, your people, have changed my world forever." Elias smiled. "It was my honor, Princess. Remember, hope is strongest when it is shared, and your courage has inspired all of us, human and Lyrathian alike." As the twin suns set, casting a soft glow over the palace, the people of Lyrathia celebrated not only the survival of their princess, but the dawn of a new era. It was an era of cooperation, understanding, and shared strength. The tale of a human doctor and a once ailing princess spread across star systems, a story of hope, perseverance, and the extraordinary capabilities of humans when they refuse to give up. In the quiet of the night, Princess Cerelia lay in her bed fully recovered, her heart filled with a profound sense of purpose. She had faced despair, illness, and fear, but she had emerged stronger, guided by determination, courage, and the unwavering commitment of a human who refused to turn away. Elias, standing silently at her side, reflected on the journey they had shared. Humanity had once again proven that its greatest power was not in weapons, wealth, or technology, but in the ability to act with courage, to persevere in the face of impossible odds, and to inspire hope where it was needed most. The stars above Lyrathia twinkled brightly, shining down on a world that had faced darkness and emerged into light. The princess had recovered, the planet was stable, and humanity's reputation as a force for ingenuity, resilience, and hope was stronger than ever. And in that quiet moment, Both human and Lyrathian knew that whatever challenges awaited in the future, they could face them together with courage, cooperation, and an unshakable belief in the power of hope. The ailing alien princess had indeed given up once, but thanks to a human doctor's determination, she had been given a reason to hope, to fight, and to lead her people into a brighter future. And for the first time in many cycles, Lyrathia looked to the stars with pride, knowing that across the universe humans were allies, friends, and living proof that even the most fragile life could be strengthened by courage, ingenuity, and hope.